I'm Lucas Vane, 48 years old. For 20 years, I've been the man corporations call when money disappears into shadowy offshore accounts. The forensic accountant who can trace a single dirty dollar through 12 shell companies before breakfast. Tonight, I discovered the most expensive lie of my career wasn't in some CEO's books, it was in my own bed. The email arrived at 3:17 a.m. Singapore time. I remember because my phone buzzed against the hotel nightstand exactly as the fire alarm began its ear-splitting wail. For 3 endless minutes, I stood barefoot in the emergency stairwell with 100 panicked strangers, the cold concrete biting through my socks, while that unread message burned in my pocket. When security finally declared it a false alarm, I slumped against the hallway wall. The screen's glow reflected in the window behind me, showing 2 versions of myself, the exhausted man in rumpled dress shirt and his ghostly twin floating in the black Singapore night. I've taken what's mine. Don't bother coming home. No greeting, no signature, just 3 lines of text and an attachment that turned my stomach to lead. The screenshot showed our joint account balance, 0. $380,000 evaporated. I scrolled through the transactions with numb fingers, 3 massive withdrawals over the past week, all while I'd been testifying against that Swiss banker in court. The last one cleared yesterday at 2:15 local time, right as I'd been explaining to the jury how to spot money laundering patterns. The elevator dinged. A red-faced businessman stumbled out, reeking of gin and laughing at something on his phone. He nearly collided with me, his Rolex glinting under the hallway lights, the same model I'd bought Alara last Christmas. Then I saw the memo line, "For services rendered, White Sands Gallery." The name hit me like a punch. That pretentious little gallery Alara had dragged me to last month for inspiration, where she'd lingered too long by that abstract sculpture with Dante Ref, his manicured fingers brushing hers as he explained the artist's vision, where she'd insisted on buying that hideous $15,000 vase that now sat in our foyer, a cheap prop for whatever performance she'd been running. My hands shook as I opened a different banking app, one I'd created under a blind trust after my first big case. The login screen demanded a 12-digit code. I entered our anniversary first. Access denied. Her birthday next. Access denied. Then, with a bitter laugh, I typed the date of my father's funeral, the day she'd held me as I shattered, whispering promises she'd known were lies even then. The screen cleared. Account balance $2,100,000. Outside, fire truck sirens faded into the humid night. Somewhere over the Pacific, my flight to Zurich waited. And as the numbers stared back at me, that beautiful, untouched sum, I realized this wasn't about money anymore. This was a crime scene. And for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't the investigator. I was the evidence. What do you do when the person who knows all your weaknesses decides to use them? Zurich smelled like diesel and frozen stone. The kind of cold that doesn't sting, it settles like it owns you. I should have called the police, a lawyer, my bank. Instead, I walked Raphael's street like a ghost, the memory of her message still pulsing behind my eyes. I've taken what's mine. Don't bother coming home. It wasn't the money, not really. It was how casually she ended everything we'd built with one text. His building hadn't changed, a golden Art Deco shell against the frost. 3 years ago, I'd stood on those steps with a bottle of scotch, toasting his daughter's baptism. Ilara had been there too, fussing with a lace bonnet while pretending we were whole. Now I came empty-handed, except for a burner phone and a screenshot that made my chest feel tight. The door opened before I knocked. "You look like hell," Raphael said. His voice hadn't changed either, half smoke, half steel. He handed me bourbon in a chipped glass, no questions asked. It burned all the way down. I dropped onto the same leather chair we'd used for deal nights and late chess. Across from me, the wall was filled with new photos of his daughter. Ballet recitals, birthdays. I wasn't in any of them. I wasn't surprised. I placed my phone on the counter between us. The screen glowed with the gallery's transaction log. My fingers trembled as I swiped to the photo. Dante Reef, smug as ever, leaving our building at 3:06 a.m. His shirt was buttoned wrong. "Tell me this isn't real," Raphael muttered. "It's worse than it looks," I said. "That's the man Ilara bought that hideous vase from, the one she said was visionary." He stared at the screen. White Sands Gallery? Every transfer traced back there. Every lie signed in brushstrokes. I paused. My mouth was dry. And she didn't just take the money. She erased me from our life, like I was an outdated invoice. He tapped the screen, zooming into a familiar address. "Lucas," his voice lowered, "your Geneva place? It's not yours anymore. She moved the deed into a company called Azure Holdings." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My signature looked flawless, but it wasn't mine. I stared at it the way you stare at a scar you don't remember getting. "She forged it," I whispered. The room fell into silence, broken only by the crack of melting ice. I stood, the weight in my chest spreading outward like cold iron. I used to spend weeks proving people like her wrong in court, and she knew exactly how I worked. She didn't just lie, she rehearsed it. Raphael opened his laptop, fingers moving with quiet precision. 3 major transfers, he said, turning the screen to me, all from White Sands, all within 10 days, ending in a Cayman account under her name. The numbers meant nothing. What hit me was the date. The last transfer cleared while I was testifying in Singapore, telling 12 strangers how to follow dirty money. "She played me," I said. My voice cracked. "She watched me build the very net she used to trap me." Raphael didn't answer. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small black envelope. "What's this?" "A copy of Dante's gallery schedule. Their private client dinner is tonight, Cheval Blanc." I stared at the red circle drawn around the event. A tight knot of ink on expensive paper. Like a bullseye. The bourbon hit harder the second time. "You going to confront her there?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, though I did. This wasn't about confrontation anymore. This was about dignity. Mine, whatever was left of it. I picked up the phone and stared at Dante's smirking face. He had no idea I was coming. Could you look someone in the eye, knowing they turned your life into a ledger? Geneva's skyline shimmered beneath the penthouse windows like broken glass under moonlight. The table was set with our wedding china, Limoges, the one Ilara had chosen because it reflected candlelight like champagne. I hadn't seen those plates since our 10th anniversary. Dante Reef sat across from me, swirling a heavy glass of Barolo, his knife glinting under the chandelier. He looked comfortable, too comfortable. "You must understand, Lucas," he said with that smug little half-smile. "When your assistant called, I assumed we were talking about new investment avenues, not a reunion." He nodded toward Raphael, who lounged beside me in silence. I didn't speak. I watched his hands instead, precise, careful, the hands of a man who thought beauty could justify betrayal. "Funny you mention investments," I said, finally, sliding the folder across the table. My voice was steady, but my knuckles were white. Page 7. He hesitated, just a beat too long, then opened it. His knife clattered against the plate. The wine in his glass rippled, a dark red echo of what I felt in my chest. Raphael leaned forward. "March 15th, 75 grand out of White Sands. $100 back in. That's not art, Mr. Reef. That's laundering." The air shifted. I felt it before I heard the soft ding of the elevator. Heels on marble. I didn't have to turn around. Ilara stepped into view, like the closing scene of a bad play. Her hair was pinned, just like the night we got engaged. Her nails, painted that blood-red shade Dante preferred. Her eyes scanned the room, and for the first time in months, I saw it. Uncertainty. Not fear, just the beginning of it. I didn't stand, didn't shout. "You always said I didn't understand art," I said quietly. Maybe I just didn't understand the artist. Dante shoved his chair back, his breath shallow. "You're twisting this." Raphael cut in, calmly placing his phone on the table. Downstairs, 2 officers waiting. No noise. They're Swiss, remember. Ilara froze. She reached for the folder with fingers that once slid across my shoulder blades in the dark. Her diamond band caught the candlelight, casting tiny fractured rainbows across the signed documents. "I trusted you," I said. Not to her, to myself. She flinched anyway. The balcony doors burst open. Wind rushed in, scattering the flames. Martina stepped through, camera in hand, her press badge swinging. Behind her, 2 familiar faces from the gallery circuit raised their phones. The truth was now light and lenses. "You set me up!" Dante roared. "No," I said, rising at last. I smoothed the sleeve of my jacket, the way I used to before court. Ilara's lips parted, but no words came. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time saw a stranger. The same woman who once whispered love to me in hospitals and airports had built this deception like a mosaic, one lie at a time, beautiful from a distance, hollow underneath. The lights flickered from a gust outside. Candlelight danced across the shattered trust between us. For a second, I thought I'd feel relief. I didn't. I felt clean. "You're done," I said softly, "not because of what you stole, but because I finally see what I gave away." Dante's voice cracked as the officers entered. Ilara didn't speak. She just stood there as the flash went off, her face captured beside a man in cuffs, her entire performance exposed. "Would you dare to speak the truth when the lies are already written in black and white?" It took 7 minutes and 12 seconds for the police to arrest Dante. I watched every one of them from the penthouse window, my breath fogging the glass. Outside, the lake glistened like liquid steel under morning sun. Dante's once flawless suit bunched at the shoulders as he was folded into the unmarked car. No cameras now, just the quiet ending of a loud man. Behind me, the only sound was the sharp click of Ilara's heel tapping the marble, again and again, like she was trying to keep rhythm with a world that had already moved on without her. "You could have just asked for a divorce," I said, still facing the window. She slammed a coffee cup on the counter. "And gotten what? Half?" When I turned around, she was tearing a linen napkin with her nails, those same perfect blood-red claws he always had done before important nights. The shredded fabric lay in pieces between us, like us. "You were never here, Lucas," she snapped. "The only thing you loved was your work." I didn't argue. I just reached into my breast pocket and placed my phone on the counter. The recording was still active. The mic caught everything, especially that last line. "You forged my signature. You moved our home behind my back. Don't pretend this was self-defense." She blinked. Once. Then I opened the real estate listing and handed it to her. Our penthouse, price to sell, below market, fully furnished. The photos? Her closet, her vanity, her favorite spot on the terrace, all marked up by a real estate watermark. Already live. Ilara's lips parted, but the words got stuck. Maybe for the first time, she realized this wasn't negotiation. It was verdict. My phone buzzed, a short note from my lawyer. White Sands accounts frozen, Cayman transfers blocked, case closed. I exhaled slowly. Justice didn't feel loud. It felt clean, like exhaling glass dust. Raphael stepped into the room with 2 boarding passes. "Car's downstairs," he said quietly. I nodded. But then she grabbed my wrist. Her fingers curled tightly over my pulse, her nails pressing in, not out of love, out of instinct. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I didn't pull away right away. I looked down at the hand that used to wipe my tears. Now it trembled just enough to betray everything she pretended to be. I removed her hand finger by finger. Her diamond ring screeched softly against my watch face. "You already regret it for both of us," I said. As I stepped into the elevator, I handed Raphael a folded newspaper. Tomorrow's finance section. The front page. Art dealer at center of global laundering probe. Below the headline, a pixelated photo of Dante in cuffs, and just behind him, blurred in emerald silk, a woman trying to look away. The doors closed. I didn't watch her face as they did. How far would you go to reclaim your dignity? The first snow of winter was dusting the fjord when the hammer's echo finally stopped bouncing off my cedar beams. I wiped resin from my hands onto jeans still stiff from the tailors. No more suits, no more silk ties that felt like nooses. The scent of fresh pine and dark roast blended perfectly in the cabin's open space, where my old accounting manuals now sat next to fishing tackle on handmade shelves. Raphael appeared in the doorway, snowflakes melting in his beard. He held 2 envelopes, one legal-sized, the other small enough to fit a photograph. Geneva Court closed the case today. I took them with sawdust-roughened fingers. The first contained Ilara's final relinquishment of claims, notarized with a shaky signature. The second held a surveillance photo. Dante hauling crates at a Miami dockside bar, his designer stubble grown into a ratty beard, those once immaculate hands now blistering under cardboard edges. Someone had scrawled, "Art appreciation looks different in daylight," across the bottom. White Sands officially folded last week, Raphael said, hanging his coat on the peg I'd carved from driftwood. Turns out wealthy clients don't like their consultants appearing in Interpol bulletins. I slid the papers onto the shelf beside my favorite memento, a framed photo from my first big case. The 28-year-old in that picture didn't know yet how to build a bookshelf, let alone rebuild a life. His eyes burned with the kind of hunger that costs too much to feed. My phone buzzed. Another consulting request from a Fortune 500 company. I declined with one thumb and opened a different email. The University of Oslo confirming my guest lecture on forensic ethics. Outside, the fjord's black water swallowed snowflakes whole. Raphael handed me a chipped mug of coffee. To fresh starts? I clinked mine against his, the sound ringing clear across 12 months of wreckage. To balanced ledgers. The ceramic was still warm against my palm when my laptop pinged, a Google alert for Ilara's name. The link led to a lifestyle blog's Starting Over feature. There she stood, in a District 5 studio, posing beside a sad-looking succulent, her caption gushing about the freedom of simple living. The comments section was a graveyard of unanswered questions about her sudden career change. I closed the tab as snow blurred the view outside. Somewhere beneath those flakes lay the remains of everything we'd burned down. The penthouses and prenups, the lies dressed up in emerald silk. All reduced to this: warm coffee, honest work, and the quiet mathematics of justice. What's worth more, being right or being free? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Ever rebuilt yourself from ashes?